Force of Gravity by Charred Shadows. Read by The Devil's Advocate 18. Summary. Bob has to watch as Cyrus is killed in the unicorn attack. Metal slashes through flesh, breaks bone, and then the unicorn's head falls to her feet. The body quickly follows, crashing to the ground and spilling blood across the dirt. Bob steps back away from the pool, the mud churned up from the foot traffic and mixing with the blood squelching under her feet. Another unicorn is coming at her from behind, aiming to run her through, so she pivots, ducking under the attack and driving her sword into the beast's chest. The unicorn falls to cheers from the werewolves around her, and looking up she realizes that her fellow fighters have given her a wide berth, despite most of the others having paired up with someone from their own corps or someone from the other. She had been left to fend for herself. She doesn't mind. She's always been better at fighting by herself and not having to worry about the safety of another. She shakes off the cold feeling that realization brings as she falls another charging unicorn. "Boss!" The shrill cry calls from across the battlefield, breaking Bob out of her unicorn-killing zone, and she whips around to find the source. There, on the complete opposite end of the field, several hundred werewolves, vampires, and subterranean types between them, is Cyrus. He'd been cornered against her car by at least 2 unicorns, his knife buried into the metal door of her car, JC and Nicole nowhere to be seen, and Bob can only pray they got out of there safe. The world around her seems to slow down as all of her attention and sense is zeroed in on her ward. She'll never be able to reach him in time. He's going to die right in front of her, and there's nothing she can do about it. One of the unicorns lunges for him, horn ready to drive into him, and he screams again. Bob can do nothing but watch as the unicorn throws itself forward into Cyrus. His face twists in pain as he's impaled, but his fists close around the hilt of his dagger, yanking it out of the car door. The unicorn drags him away from it. The 2 other unicorns advance on him as he plunges the blade deep into the initial attacker's eye. Everything comes rushing back to Bob, the sound, the sense of battle now overwhelming her. The sun is setting behind her, casting a golden glow across the field. Everything feels loud, and that she can't even hear herself as she screams for her ward. But she can feel the magic sparking on her tongue as she hurls the most aggressive, bone-breaking curse that she can think at the unicorn still attacking her ward. The force of the curse creates a shock wave moving around the battlefield and knocking her allies to the ground. The unicorn closest to her explodes, sending guts and viscera flying, splattering across her visage. The unicorns by Cyrus freeze as the spell reaches them, and then turns their teeth on themselves. Bob finds her feet to be moving with a sick sort of satisfaction washing over her at the sight of the unicorns beginning to render their flesh from their bones against her will. She races across the battlefield, paying no mind to the soldiers still recovering from her spell. Cyrus lays sprawled out on the solid ground that hasn't yet been turned to mud, golden blood spilling out beneath him. She drops to her knees beside him and drags his body into her arms with little ceremony. He's still breathing, but every breath is quickly choked on a wheeze and causes the gaping hole in his chest to clench painfully. His eyes blink open, lavender glazed over with pained tears, and he smiles at her weakly. "Did I do good?" he asks, his voice so quiet that Bob has to lean in to hear him. His question makes feelings of nostalgia and hatred well up in her chest. Images of a younger, beaming Cyrus flash through her mind. Fresh from a task or training session, she'd put so much time and effort into raising and caring for her ward. Cyrus is the closest thing to family she has anymore, and these monstrous beasts had the gall to take that away from her. She's going to make them all pay, no matter what it takes. But for now, She has a child to soothe. You did so well, she reassures him, cradling him close with one arm and brushing his hair from his face with the opposite hand. I can't. Tears gather on her lash line as she chokes on her words but manages it with some effort. I can't do anything. I'm so sorry, Cecil. She murmurs his true name at a volume only he can hear, despite knowing no one else was around to hear her. He gives her one last weak smile, and then his eyes lose focus and he falls limp in her arms, all the warmth drained from Bob's chest, her morals leaving her as her ward does, the golden blood now staining the ground, and her clothes glint in the last rays of dying sunlight, and the sun fully disappears below the horizon, the light dying in a new era of darkness as she cradles the body growing colder by the minute. Bob still can't pull herself out of the memories of a much younger Cyrus, everything she taught him, everything they'd been through together, all the jokes he made and the trouble he'd get into. She would give anything to hear him crack one more joke. She sits there until her arms and lower legs go numb from the lack of circulation, until she's shivering from the cold, until all sounds of battle cease behind her, and Patrick appears over her shoulder. He's panting hard as he drops down beside her, exhausted from battle. Bob, he tries, but she quickly silences him. It's not your fault. He offered to come with Nicole. He knew the risks. Patrick leans his forehead against her shoulder and threads his hand through Cyrus's hair to comfort himself. Where are they? She asks, referring to the missing human couple. The healer's tent. Nicole broke her wrist, but JC's fine. They asked about you and Cyrus, and I told them I'd find you. He answers, thumb gliding across Cyrus's forehead in a soothing motion. What should I tell them? He asks in turn. Bob considers the question for a moment and then answers, despondent. The truth. They deserve to know. Patrick stays by her side for a few more moments, doing his best to compose himself before he has to return to his duties as commander. Bob forces her eyes to close as he leaves, taking his body heat with him. She's so cold sitting here in the dirt. The night is still, not even a light breeze passing through. She can feel as deep hatred blossoms within her, her magic sparking in her chest before catching on the blossoms and setting it ablaze. The hate-fueled magic becomes so strong, and she's not even bothering to manage it in the slightest, that the seats within the car catch fire and smoke begins to billow up into the night sky. The Iron Witch watches as the car is entirely taken over by flames, so hot that the metal starts to melt. This was Force of Gravity by Charred Shadows, read by The Devil's Advocate 18. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time.